I think we've got enough people in the room to talk about sex, don't we? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, okay, so we've got enough people. We've got a threesome up at the top here, so we're all good, I think. So anyway, so amongst all this time, I had been married and divorced twice. And so I was a single mom with two young kids. And about 8 years ago, my friends were saying, okay, look, work, no problem. You've got that nailed, right? You've got a beautiful family. You know, this is all going really well. You need a partner. You're boring. So I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? And in today's day and age, what's the best way to meet someone? On the internet, online dating, right? How hard can it be, I thought. Anybody internet dating or online dating or thinking about going online dating? Yeah? Yes, no. It was like this for the sex, and now we're like, okay, so we've got online dating. So yeah, okay, anybody else? No? Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my first experience online dating, which happened 8 years ago, and how it sort of led me to the biggest transformation of my life. And the funny thing was that after doing all this work with organizations, I found that the three things that were the most difficult things to sort of wrap your head around in organizational change were the same three things that I struggled with in my own personal transformation. And so the first one was around authenticity. Second one was around alignment. And the third one was around attitude. So would it be okay if I just shared a little bit of the first there's a promise it's PG. I'll keep it PG. There's small children in the room. So I went online dating. And has anyone ever been to Hawaii? Hawaii? Okay, so imagine if you were with me. Okay, it's 6 months after I've met this guy online, right? I'm sitting at the bar at the Waikiki beach bar. So, imagine it, right? Okay, because we're all feeling lightheaded right now because we haven't eaten. But imagine it, if you will. You've got the breeze blowing in. We're sitting at the bar. We've just ordered the pina coladas. They're the ones with the beautiful coconut milk, not from, the umbrella, beautiful pineapple. Maybe we've had more than one. Maybe. So, and we're sitting and we're joking around. It's all sorts of fun, and we're at the bar, and I'm thinking about James, who's coming to meet me. So I met James. He was like, I think, the second person that I met online, and he was a consultant like me, and he had a child, and I had two girls, so we were both single parents. His wife had passed away to cancer, but then I was thinking secretly, like off the record, no ex-wives, don't to worry about, which was fabulous, right? I already had two on the, And so, I'm sitting there thinking, this is going to be fantastic. He had beautiful crystal blue eyes. He had this big shock of black hair, and I was, excited to meet him. So on the outside, everybody's like, oh, she's meeting him. He's going to be great. And what you wouldn't have realized on the inside of that smiley face that was just sucking back another pina colada was that over the course of the 6 months that I was in a relationship with James online, I loaned him $140,000. And actually, James didn't come to Hawaii. So I bet you didn't think that was what was happening. Anyway, so I'm a PhD. Did I mention that? How stupid can someone be to send somebody $140,000? It didn't happen all at once. It happened in little dribs and drabs. And the technology that's around romance scams it is just so, I was doing banking for him, moving money around. It's incredible. But that's not why I'm here today, really. It was about sex, right? No. So I was wandering around in Hawaii after I realized that, look, James isn't coming. And the bigger question was, where am I going to get the $140,000 that I pulled out of a credit facility? Because at this time, I was living the high life. I had a great job, 6-figure income, beautiful beach house in Island Bay, Roger Walker Design. Everyone who was coming to me for strategy. I've done like 3-4 national strategies for New Zealand. How on earth am I going to reconcile being an advisor to the top people when you can't even get yourself out of a wet paper bag online dating? So what I proceeded to do then is spent about 2 years berating myself. I had to sell my house, obviously, because I didn't have the cash. I had a day spa business. I had to get rid of that, and everybody got let go. My life was in a major tailspin. And the worst part about it was I couldn't tell anyone. I could not tell anyone. The shame and the stupidity of, you can only imagine as we have that little voice in our heads that berates ourselves so badly about anything we potentially do wrong. But the kicker was that I wasn't the only one that falls prey to these things. Because, if you would have asked me before, would you ever fall prey to a romance scam, I would have laughed you out, I would have been like laughing my ass off. There's no way, really? Come on. We lose each year $60 billion globally to romance scams. 60 billion. Okay, and let me tell you, that's not going into some of the wonderful stories and it's not going to Zimbabwe and helping kids read and looking at, different things. It's going into illicit activities. It's going into drugs. It's going into, weaponry. It's not saving, hearts. So then the other part of me started saying, well, now what are you going to do with this bloody story? You can't, it's like a cigarette burning near a beautiful national forest. It's like, well, you got to freaking tell somebody about it. It's like, well, I'm not telling anybody about it because, boy, I'm going to look really stupid. And so I went from being a businesswoman to a romance scam victim to being an author. Who'd have thunk it, right? Online dating created a writer. But what I couldn't do was sit idly by and let someone else go through the same thing that I went through. But the process to go through this wasn't as simple as like, oh, okay, I'll just write a book on online dating, which is called I Love You, Send Money, by the way. So what I ended up doing, and I know that there'll be people in the audience that have either wanted to write a book or have thought about, different things. First of all, this is it's a true story. It's all the ins and outs. And you'd think that writing a story that you lived through would be easy enough to do. But here's kind of what happened. So I started writing, and even though it took me about 2 or 3 years to get to the point where I could actually start to articulate it, I couldn't write it in first person. I was still embarrassed about the story. And for literally the last 6 or 7 years, when the book came out about 3 years ago, the writing process, I couldn't write in the first person. So I gave my story, it's Alexis Jourdain, not Jordan Alexander. No one will ever know. And then I sort of slid it under, and I had a bit of a launch party with some friends and family, and I dressed it up as a bit of a romance novel. Because even then, even though I knew that this was a huge social issue, 60 billion, what could we do with $60 billion globally in terms of good? I still couldn't own up to it. And this is probably the first time that I'm speaking publicly and owning that story in a way that is, it's me. And so if you've got that passion that's inside you to do something, you have to actually do it. I had thought about writing my whole life, but it was way easier to go through it and be a consultant. It was way easier to go and play that other role. And this is where that authenticity comes up. The universe decided that I was going to write someday. And if it was going to take me a little while to figure that out, it's going to give me a good kick and get me writing, because I couldn't help it. So those boundaries and those barriers that we get presented with are just the universe's way of thumping and saying, hey, look, you've got something to say. So that's that authenticity that's inside each of us. We have to listen to that. The second thing around the alignment, what I figured out was that the way I was living my life was actually not aligned to who I am. And not only did I have to tell people what to avoid when they go online dating, I thought, well, bugger this. I'm going to teach people how to go online dating. Because women of a certain age I still can't figure out how to work my phone. So there's a lot of things. I'm sure you're all better than that, but online dating it's a great technology. It's a great system. But what happens is it's like that whole garbage in, garbage out. If we go online and we're still carrying all that shit that we've been carrying around for years, all the speakers, as you're telling your stories and you're sharing your set points that you have as a child, as a young person, that becomes your normal. And if normal was once we're warriors, well, that's what you're looking for when you go online. Because your set point isn't, and then we had the Devonshire tea out in the back garden. It's like, no, man, somebody's got to be swearing, cursing, somebody smashed their head up against the side. That's normal. So what happens if you don't sort of deal with this stuff before you go online, and I call it relationship ready, you end up connecting at that same set point that you think is your normal. So I was dating all these really cool guys, but when things were going too good, because my set point was further down, I'd create drama. I'd create problems. And so it's not only just how we go online and what we do with these things, we have to make sure that we've actually stripped down to expose ourselves and sort through some of those layers, or else we're actually just connecting up the wrong level. So we have to align our true selves with the right person that's out there. The last thing's around attitude. And this is kind of tougher because it deals with a lot of the beliefs that we have growing up. So I come from a Croatian and Ukrainian background. So my father Croatian, mother Ukrainian. So the things that I learned in terms of relationships, well, my mother was like, does he beat you? No. Does he drink too much? No. What's your problem then? Okay, thanks very much for that relationship advice, Mom. And then Dad was no better because as a Croatian, we talk about, the role of the woman. So when I was the first in my family in several generations to even want to go to university, he looked at me and said, why on earth would you want to go to university? Because you're going to end up being a mom and staying at home. So the beliefs that we have, even though you break through those things and you think, oh, no problem, I've got this totally under control, I'm well educated, it's still there. And so when we start to look for love and when we start to try and create those connections and those authentic attachments, we have to understand how our attitudes and how our mindsets are influenced by those past beliefs. So I think online dating is a fantastic way to meet people. Two and a half years ago, I went back online and I ended up meeting my now husband. And so the book that I had initially written, which was I Love You, Send Money, part 2 comes out in another week's time. And that was my journey into self-love because I had to figure my own self out. It's called Turbulence, an Extreme Love Story. So we go from the broken heart to the full heart. And now he promised me that this will be the third and the final chapter in the trilogy. And that's about love adventures, and that's about having a relationship, a conscious relationship. And it doesn't mean that we don't have sex and that we don't have wonderful, amazing, encounters and big, arguments and those sorts of things. But what we're doing is that we're going into it with eyes wide open. And I would encourage you all to just sort of think about not only, your own love journeys and the things that you can glean from the past experiences, but also to make sure that when you go into an area like love, to be gentle with yourself and understand what your blind spots are. My blind spot was that in a major way, I didn't love myself. And so I became vulnerable, and then I just went for the first thing that came along, which happened to be, somebody, ending up. Yeah, well, that was my last pina colada. No, I've had many more since, but actually I just had, no, I won't. So that the authenticity, the alignment, and getting the attitude, that will absolutely get you over any of the hurdles. And just that last sort of parting advice, really. And I think you've heard it all in the stories that we've heard already this morning. The boundaries, the obstacles, they're like little gifts that we need to unwrap and really understand why is it that they're on my path. Because without that romance scam, I wouldn't be on my 4th book. That's the reality. And I wouldn't have met my beautiful husband now. And I've never been happier. And, money comes, money goes, but the lessons, you can't put a price tag on. Okay, that's it.